beginning kind of activity. You got to click off. There you go. Okay, so imagine you didn't wake up for your alarm. You spilled your coffee on your shirt on the way into work. There's construction traffic on the highway, and you pull into a parking lot and you realize that there's suspicious activity on your bank account. So all of these things are going wrong. What's something someone could do or say as you walk into your building that could make it worse or could make it better? So go ahead and put those things in the chat and I can kind of shout some of them out. Oh, okay. Making it worse if you're kind of warned that there's a parent on a warpath. Someone offering coffee might make it better. Getting yelled at might make it worse. If you're forgetting to clock in or clock out. Oh, if someone says, "Why are you late?" That's a good one. Missing
the one I added. No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say the one I added was, how many of us are out there saying, "Oh, I can bury this," and that's what we'll talk about a little later as far as that rational detachment goes. But even all this will say, "No, I can swallow it and just wait till after school."
Missing a meeting, just someone generally caring, is everything okay, checking in on you. So those kind of things might make it better. Okay, so we're going to kind of talk about how those things can affect us and can also affect our students. If you go to the next one.
Yep. Oops. There we go.
Okay. Give me a second to go back. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach, we punish. Why can't we finish the last sentence as automatically as we do the others? So this is a lot to do with what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, I keep trying to use the arrows.
There you go.
Everyone has needs, okay? And on the left, William Glasser was a psychiatrist back in the 20th century, I think World War II, and he did some work on how to get society back up and running after a wartime economy when everybody was getting all the overtime they could handle and everybody was making money. And then all of a sudden it came to a screeching halt and the adjustments people had to make. And he said on the left that there were 5 basic needs that everybody had: love, power, freedom, fun, and survival. Well, if you try to transfer that into a school, and Billy's going to be a popular student of ours today, and Billy's in high school and you come up to him and say, "Listen, I sense that you just aren't having, getting enough love in your life. You might need to step back." So we've kind of transferred those into belonging, control, enjoyment, choice, and safety. 5 basic needs of every student there. Okay. All behaviors occur because of some need not being met. All right. Now I'm going to go through the crisis development model for those of you that have had CPI, which should be most of you, and you've probably had it for me in the last 18 years at one point. Let me run it through it really quick. I do want to stop after level 2 and just share out a little bit about some things that we're seeing. Okay. So we all know that level 1 is that anxiety. It's that noticeable increase or change in behavior. Pacing, withdrawal, tapping are examples. Keep in mind, if Billy is that boy that is a squirrel on speed every day and he comes in and he's now sitting there quiet, staring straight ahead, that might be his sign of anxiety. It's just a noticeable change. We want to be supportive. We want to nip it in the bud. We want to be empathic, non-judgmental. I want to say as a teacher or anybody in a classroom that I think it would be easier to walk by Billy and every minute just give him, "You cool?" something like that, as opposed to crossing your fingers and praying that the bell will ring before Billy explodes. So I always say we want to nip it in the bud, and try to de-escalate it right when we notice that anxiety. The next level is that defensive. This is, we say this is, you're not my mom, you're not my dad, you can't make me. And that is true. We can't physically force them to do anything. But it is also that defensive, we say they get off the bus defensive. What are you looking at? It's that saying no. It's not listening to your direction. It's ignoring you. And at this point, we want to give a directive. We want to have that approach, that we're taking control, that we're offering limits, kind of setting some boundaries around it, putting some boundaries around that escalating situation, and kind of boxing it in for them. The thing that I wanted to touch on right here is, before we get there, one mistake that I see and that we see quite often at this level is that, and I did this as a first-year teacher, okay? I was so guilty of this, because what would happen is that they would be at level 1, they'd get anxious, I'd be nice, I'd try to help them any way I could. Sugar, sweet, nice. Well, then maybe something would happen and that would escalate to that defensive stage, and I made the mistake of saying I wasn't nice enough, I need to be more supportive. And what are we in effect doing? We're supporting that defensive attitude. We're supporting that saying no, ignoring you, leaving the room, whatever that looks like, but we're not giving that directive. We're not boxing that in any way, okay? And I just want to make everybody aware of that we're seeing that they just, and I was like that. Oh, I need to be nicer at this stage. We had some fun this summer, kind of just, quoting the fact that sometimes they need Aunt Esther, not Aunt B, and that's at this stage. All us old folks know what I'm talking about. Level 3, because this is just verbal de-escalation, we'll just touch on it briefly. This is that acting out person. This is when they are a danger to themselves or others, and this is when we need to put hands on student, put them in a control, for the care, welfare, safety, and security of everybody involved. We also know that this stage is for those people that are trained in CPI as part of a student support team, or depending on what classrooms are in your building, administration, etc. Now, this last part of this, level 4, this is that crisis development model, okay? That last part of it is tough for me. It always has been, because by definition, this is saying that something went unplanned, something went into crisis, whether it went to level 2 or 3, it wasn't expected per se. If it was, we'd have planned for it and it wouldn't have been such a big crisis. But this is hard because they've thrown a monkey wrench into your day. You had a great lesson plan. You had a great day ahead of you, and Billy lost his mind. But this is the part where we can't hold a grudge. Okay, we loved Billy yesterday. He lost his mind today. We gotta love him again tomorrow. Okay, don't hold a grudge. Reestablish that relationship. Learn from it. Plan for the next time, and go forward with it. Natalie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, and then Eric, before I go on, remember that bar I had you slide down because you couldn't get to the things at the top? Can you slide it all the way down to the bottom?
I will try.
I just want to see if that fixes.
The only thing that's changed is when you had me click that sound thing, and I'm flying blind. I can't see anybody.
And then do you have another bar that keeps popping up at the top as well?
Yeah, it's telling me that people are in the waiting room, and I keep
go ahead and X out. Go ahead and X out of it.
Yeah, I try to as many times as I can.
Okay, no big deal.
So,
all right. Cool. All right, so communication. One of the biggest communication problems we face is most people do not listen to understand. We listen to reply. So we're not really picking up on what the actual message is. So go ahead and we'll elaborate. So if you've done CPI before, you have seen these numbers, but 7% of our communication is verbal, so the actual words that are coming out of our mouth. We have 38% of communication is paraverbal, so kind of our tone, our speed, how we say something. And 55% of our communication actually is nonverbal, so our body language, our proximity. So that's kind of something we're going to go a little bit more in depth in, but it's not always the words that we're saying are the most important. It's kind of everything else around it. Go ahead to the next one. Okay, so our mindset and our personal life can affect our delivery. We do not live in a vacuum. So anything that is, so what we talked about at the beginning, you have a really bad morning, and then someone comes in or a student comes up to you and, wants you to help them with something. And we might just be in a bad mood and we could snap at them for no reason. And it's not their fault. They didn't do anything different. But our life is kind of coming into our work and it's affecting how we're reacting to people. So we don't live in a vacuum. So we can't stop this from happening. We just have to learn how to navigate when these situations happen or when we feel different on a certain day. We be extra aware of how we are saying what we are saying. So what I was talking about with that how much communication is kind of body language and how we're saying things. Same with be aware of our body language while talking. Those are very important things that when we're talking to students, they might be more aware of the fact that we're slouching or looking angry, opposed to what we're actually saying might be encouraging or something that could help them. And then if a person is in crisis or experiencing trauma, they're focused on that, not always reading others' communication correctly. So just if we get a text that there's some suspicious activity on our account and we're worried about this, we're going to be thinking about that as we're coming into work, and we might not be as worried about how we're interacting with students or interacting with our coworkers. And the other thing is if someone is stressed about that, they might just not read our signs as well as they might typically, so they might be more easily offended or more easily triggered. Go ahead to the next one. Okay, so in the chat, we felt like this was important to note. How has COVID affected your communication? Think about proximity, touch, COVID restrictions in the last, year and a half. What's really changed? What's maybe a little bit more difficult for you? No hugs.
No, like while you're answering this has really affected me because I was that teacher that would put, hands on your shoulders and say, how can I help you? Or put an arm around you and say, what can I do? One of those things. And, they'd rub my head for good luck before a ball game, or just, like you said, no more hugging. It's created such a different way of classroom management for some of us.
Harder to hear what students say. Can't see smiles. It's harder to whisper. I think that one's a really good one. The amount of things I just want to tell one student, you can't really get super close to them and just interact with them without everybody else around them knowing. Not being able to see facial expressions is a big one.
Or read lips for us that are very hard of hearing now.
Mm-hmm. Hear words clearly, which could also be really frustrating and triggering for if you have students that have speech differences, and now all of a sudden you're having to ask them what they said 600 times, and then they're done by the fourth time.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Good.
Those are really good answers.
I'll make sure I didn't go too far. Zoom, this has been wonderful today on Zoom. I wish we were in person, because when we do talk about proxemics or personal space, it's always nice to do that in person and to have some fun with it. But think about how COVID has even changed this slide. It used to be that we'd say, oh, 1.5 to 3 feet is that bubble that we as humans have. And now is it 3 to 6 feet? We're so conscious of it that even when we, lean over too close to talk to our colleagues, that they're backing away. Keep in mind that everything that affects that, gender, size, cultural background, and that invasion of that personal space can increase their anxiety. Also keep in mind the direction from which you are approaching students. I say as teachers, you guys, we all can read upside down and backwards, but as well as we can forward, you just don't really know it. But I've learned to always approach a student to help them with their work from the front, whether I got to take a knee in front of their desk, but I've maybe learned the hard way that hunkering over them while they're in a desk, coming up from behind them, first of all, it's going to scare them. Second of all, it is just going to heighten their anxiety. They're going to be very defensive at that stage. So keep in mind that direction. When we talk about kinesics, that's our body posture and motion. This is our facial expressions under our masks, our gestures, how we're holding ourselves, our posture. Are we showing as adults nonverbal signs of anxiety? Do we know it? Are you that person that as soon as your, hands clasped behind your back, the kids know, oh, he's getting anxious or something like that. How are we holding ourselves? And they'll pick up on it. They'll know whether that's, you're getting anxious or not. So you can escalate or de-escalate a situation with your body language. Love to include this. When we saw it the first time a couple years ago, we were so happy. And we're like, oh my God, that is it. And we just wanted to replay it because now we don't see it every other commercial on television during a ball game. So if I pull this off.
Call you back. Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there.
What a day.
With car insurance for when things go wrong,
What a day!
but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
All right.
You did it.
I did it.
Mhm,
Wow.
You did
Okay.
great.
That was remarkable.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm.
Can I
is
X
there.
off that now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Sort of did it. Great place though in there, and I talked about it differently last time, but you saw some sarcasm there. And when we talk about communication, that's one thing that we're kind of seeing in the district a little bit. And I actually saw it in a classroom where they were getting some feedback that said absolutely no sarcasm ever. Our kids don't understand it. And I stepped back and said, no, I'm not going to go there. I think our kids do understand it. I think that all depends on the relationship you have with that student. But if you can use sarcasm to provide humor to de-escalate a situation, I have no problem with that. Use it on yourself. Make fun of yourself to de-escalate a situation. All right. You're the adult here. You're comfortable in your own skin. I'm perfectly fine being a bald old man. So the other thing, paraverbal. Keep in mind your tone, your volume, and your cadence, okay? Avoid impatience, condensation. Think about the volume. I can't express it enough, but yelling and screaming just doesn't work anymore, okay? I know it worked 50 years ago, but I've learned the hard way. All it does is bring a lot of laughter, okay? So keep that volume under control. And keep in mind that they're now being defensive and losing that rationale. So keep your cadence, keep it even, keep it smooth, not a lot of big words, not a lot of acronyms. If it's a special ed student, we're not going to throw around all the letters we deal with all day. Keep it even keeled and something that they can understand. All right. Is this still me, Natalie? I think it is. I love this part. these are, when I think of precipitating factors, I think of that invisible suitcase full of crap that each one of our students has, that they come in your room and they gently set it on your desk and they say, I would love to learn today, but the world's too heavy. That being said, please contribute to the chat for the next two things here while we shout those.
So
Take it away, Natalie.
Your first one, what are some precipitating factors of your students in your classroom? What do they come in with before they even get to the door? Hunger, tired, yep, lack of sleep, big ones, family issues, drama, rides to school, yep, bus. Some of those kids, especially the high schoolers who have to be to school super early, get on that bus before the sun has even considered coming up. Sibling issues, language barriers, grades. These are awesome. Drug use at home, sick. All right, so then let's go to our next one. These are all great answers. So what are some precipitating factors that impact you? What do you come in to work with that you just have to deal with that has nothing to do with work before your day even begins? Traffic, lack of sleep, your own children, family members being sick, losing your keys, that's the worst. Death, COVID, not enough rest, bad coffee. Ooh, car being stolen. Just
Did not mean to do that. Sorry, Natalie.
You're fine. These are all good. I mean, they're not good. They're all, kind of awful things we have to deal with, but here's our point. So go ahead to the next one. So there is a cross section between our students and our staff, and there is a lot that overlaps, that they're coming in with their precipitating factors and we're coming in with ours. And just as they are learning to leave these things at the door, we have to learn to leave them as well.
In all my time, I've only met one teacher, and I won't call her out, that I honestly believe walked into school every day of her career, 180 days, fresh, nothing left at all at home. But she's super. Yeah, mine was always the doghouse. I felt like I could overcome anything, but boy, did my students pick up when I was in the doghouse. Literally within a minute, they're looking at me going, what stupid thing did you do yesterday? But that's me. We good?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding precipitating factors can help. It can help us prevent acting out behavior by being proactive. If you know Billy, every other Friday, first Friday of every month, whatever, he is a mess because he has to go visit dad. Dad's in prison for domestic violence. Okay. You can plan for those Fridays. You can plan to give him a break, to have him maybe not paired up or working with students he usually has a little bit of a problem with. But by being proactive, knowing that every other Friday he's going to be a mess. I don't know how, in all my years, I keep trying to say this, but you have to take it as a compliment if a student chooses you to, like we say, verbally vomit, to take it all out on. They recognize that you are a strong person, that you can handle it, that the words aren't going to make you crumble, because the last thing they want is to crumble you so that you aren't there to help them. They want you to be able to help them, to be strong, to be there for them. It rarely is about you. Okay. It's always, most of the times, about something else. And avoid becoming a precipitating factor yourself. The example I kind of paired with this was, if we know Billy's a mess every other Friday because of dad, I don't think you want to be calling him son on those Fridays where it might be okay on Monday and Tuesday or something like that, because he's missing a father figure. So therefore it's all right, but some days it's not. Okay. Back to you, Natalie.
Okay. So we always like to do this one. How do you rationally detach? How do you compartmentalize? How do you keep your work at work so you can go home and enjoy your family and your dogs and whoever else? What is your relaxation method?
And you can be honest. If wine is your choice, that's okay. We're all adults here.
Mindfulness, praying, dance, music, loud music.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Walking your dogs, car silence. That's definitely one that I do. Hot tub. Whoever said hot tub, that went too quickly. I need to find out where you live. Baths, naps, cleaning the house, resting, yoga, working out. I'll share mine. Mine would probably be working out or just hanging out with my kids, just something that has nothing to do with work at all, or like running. I can just kind of check out and be in my own space, and I don't have to think about anything I don't really want to.
Well, mine I'll share is distance. I always said I'd be divorced if my school was within 20 to 30 minutes of my home, because there's been times when I've come home too soon and my wife will say, go to Lowe's, you've come home too soon, where I didn't leave the school there. So yeah, I just need that distance of classical music on the radio or sports radio or something like that. But you do need something. I've been at this long enough to see new teachers that push back at this part and they say, no, I don't want to leave the school there. I want school to be my life. And they dig in, and by the time they are my age, they look like me. So yeah, you have to find a positive outlet somewhere or it's going to eat you alive.
I had somebody tell me it must have been my second year of teaching. You get through that first year of teaching and it's that like whirlwind. You have no idea what happened. My second year, I was just breakdown city. I wasn't physically bringing things home, but I was staying at work too late to try and get things done and just trying to take on too much and not rationally detach. And I had a conversation with somebody. They're like, we work at the post office. There's always mail. There's always mail to be delivered. There's always something to be done. There's always something to be handled. But at the end of the day, the mailman has to go home. So you have to kind of just separate yourself.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. It was like kind of game changing. It was weird.
Wonderful answers. Love them. Rational detachment is that ability to stay in control of your own behavior and not acting out personally. Now, we can't always control precipitating factors, but we can control our response to them. Okay, we got to maintain a professional behavior. We don't want to overreact. We don't want to underreact. Okay, and we talked about finding those positive outlets. Now, one thing I'll say here, and I don't think it's a slide. I get to quote Clint Eastwood, but he said in one of the Dirty Harry movies, said a man's got to know his limitations. And I've had some examples of people saying, no, sometimes things are too fresh and it is okay to tap out, to say to a colleague, Natalie, you got to take this one. And a very current example would be, if you had just lost a loved one to COVID, and now all of a sudden you're dealing with our friend Billy in a classroom who comes from a family who thinks COVID is a government conspiracy, you may not be the best person to de-escalate him right then and there. Okay. Because they will go after, things that they know that get to you. Okay. I've heard some very vile things come out of some students' mouths. So yeah, you have to maintain that professional attitude. We want you back tomorrow. I've seen some people choose that moment to not be professional, and the student was back the next day and they were not. We don't want that. We don't need it. So remain professional. If you need to tap out and have somebody take it for you, that is perfectly fine.
I just want
Go ahead.
to just cut you off. Someone in the chat put, they use the word tag, like, can you tag in for me?
Oh, great.
I think that's, if you can work something like that with your team, just like a quick code word, that's such a great idea.
Yeah. This next slide are just some quotes we kind of throw around, but there are some times when we'll come to a classroom door, and you can read them for yourself. I'm not going to read them to you, but we'll come to a classroom door and we'll say, oh, wow, they're dying on that hill. Or, wow, they're, they chose that battle, that type of thing. But the last one there, you are the adult, okay? Put your ego in your pocket. You are wonderful. We know that. But don't let that drive you to be unprofessional or to say something you didn't want to say or to react in a way that you didn't want to react, okay? One thing I always think of there is, something happens in your room, and next thing you know, there's a principal at the door. And I've seen it. I did it as a first-year teacher. You want to be that person to tell the principal what happened. And the next thing you know, you're a mile a minute trying to tell the principal in front of all the kids. Just step back, let them handle it. They'll come to you for the truth, okay? When that time is appropriate. So yeah, step back and let it just kind of unfold when it comes to those situations.
We have
go
a
ahead.
hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yes, I don't understand when to, what is it? You said don't overreact, don't underreact. And so I tried that. I still get a beating from students. But for example, a particular student, keeps saying, oh, you're not a teacher, I don't need to listen to you. So after a month, okay, she's insubordinate and she has issues. 2 months pass, she does it again, and I don't react. It's near the end of the day, and the students say, you're gonna let her get away with that? I go, it's not your business. Don't worry about it. Did I underreact?
Natalie, I can't see you.
Sorry.
No,
Go
my
ahead.
reply to that is, when I say overreact or underreact, it was more that if you think of that situation unfolding, okay, so much of this is knowing your students and having that relationship and knowing how they react to things. What I mean is, you might have a student, and I've had these, that they stand up and they will get this close to each other and jaw and threaten and say things, but will never touch each other in 3 years. And I didn't even stand up anymore because I knew them so well that they was never going to end there. You may have a student, though, like Billy, that the minute he stands up, he needs to be in a child control because a chair's flying in 5 seconds because you know him that well. So I don't know if that answered it. I want to say that, knowing that student and when they need, whether they need a limit, whether they need a directive, whether they need a control, whether they need the student support team, but that's you knowing that student as to whether or not you react over or underreact.
And that's also something specifically that we can, we could kind of touch base with you personally to work out if you still feel like you need some assistance with that. And maybe you're not getting support from the teacher you're working with or your principal or whoever, but those might be the first people to go to because they're going to know the students a lot better than we are.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's just hard with being an instructional assistant coming in to a room where they don't really know you okay.
Well, I get that too. And I said it to the first one this morning. Sometimes I'll come into a situation and they'll say, look at me and say, go de-escalate that kid. And I'll look at them and say, I've never seen that kid before. There are 5 other adults standing in this room that have a relationship with that kid, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. They have a relationship with him and could probably de-escalate him as well as I could, and probably better.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of keep going here if that's okay in the interest of time, and then we'll
We'll come
questions
back
at
to
the end.
questions at the end, more specific questions if people have them.
Okay. The next section is crisis management. Two major issues that arise when managing a crisis or behavioral issue are reacting too quickly or reacting too slowly. We're just talking about that. They can make a situation worse, or in some cases will become a learned behavior for many of our students. If they know you're not going to react soon enough, like we just talked about, they'll try to get away with something else. I was thinking of your situation. If they know that they can stand and run all the way across the room and not be stopped, well, the next thing they're going to do is try to throw something because they weren't stopped with the first thing. Reacting too soon. Staff yelling a lot is an example. Changing rules at random. I hope everybody, we always try to encourage that my rules and our rules and having that student input when making the rules of your classroom. But just because a crisis evolves doesn't mean you should change those rules, okay? Being judgmental of students' actions, we talked about that. That can be tough. Unnecessary physical control or seclusion. We talked about that. Ripping posters off the wall is not dangerous. It sucks, I'll give you that. But it's not dangerous and doesn't warrant a child control just because they're ripping the posters down. And jumping to conclusions. Just thinking you know more about them than they know, thinking oh, this is just part of him, or maybe something traumatic happened the night before that you don't know about. So along with that, we have reacting too late. We talked about it before, ignoring the problem, crossing your fingers and praying that the bell rings. Not reading those student cues because you're hoping the bell rings, you hope it'll go away, you'll hope it will self-correct, rarely does it. You might have a student go AWOL. They are in such need of attention, and they're not getting it from you because you're planned ignoring, let's say, and the next thing you know, they're out of your room looking for that attention. We talked about not knowing the whole story, being judgmental of behaviors, and all of a sudden the sheer and utter chaos because you didn't, nip it in the bud soon enough, okay? Fine line between reacting too fast and reacting too slow and reacting appropriately. Knowing your students will help determine when to react. Making decisions ahead of time will help with reaction time, okay? Knowing your students, using that decision-making matrix, plotting your students, knowing that the minute Billy stands up, we need to have all eyes on him or put him in a control, those type of things. Back to you, Natalie.
Probably one of my favorite questions in here. How do you get to know the important information about your students? And we're not just talking the stuff that you can find in Infinite Campus, like Billy lives with his mom and his older brother. We're looking for, how do you find the information his older brother has been in jail for selling drugs, or he has a kind of a broken relationship with his mom. So if you call mom, it's going to set him off. How do you get, where do you go? Who do you talk to? What do you do? Go ahead and put those in the chat. Oh, social workers, building relationships, being a quiet listener. That's a good one. Giving them space to share, getting to know the parents and the students, talking with them. I'm seeing that quite a bit. Counselors. If they're a little bit older within your school, so like a fifth grader in elementary or a junior in high school, you can talk to some previous teachers. Knowing someone in their family, building a relationship. These are all really, really good. Eric, do you have anything to add on this one?
I always love doing the interest inventories, and I know those are not the printed off ones. I always made my own, and I made them fun and I made them ridiculous so that there was, they would fill them out. But I'll just share. I swear I could tell so much about a student when they answered the "Do you believe in aliens?" question. No matter how they answered it, I was like, that was so important to me for some reason that I could know a lot about them. Let me see what the next slide. Yeah, we were talking about relationships. The stronger the relationship increases the likelihood that verbal de-escalation is successful. Now, we talk about relationships and how do we build relationships. It takes effort, it takes time. It may take some lunches. It may take having that student, buying him McDonald's one day and just sitting with him and talking. I've been in some classrooms where I'm like, if you gave me an hour, I could almost, I want to say I could fix this kid just by talking to them and letting them talk about themselves. I mean, you ask a kid, do you play sports? You can't shut him up if you let him talk about himself. So asking them about their interests. Natalie had a great one with compliments. You could say, hey, that shirt looks great on you. Doesn't mean you like the shirt, but you can say, hey, you look good in that, or whatever. Just paying them a compliment. They don't hear it enough. Okay. Leaving the judgments at the door. That can be tough. We talked about that, coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, those type of things. Play games with them, have brain breaks, do puzzles. I used to love doing jigsaw puzzles with my students, because as you sat there and worked towards it, what were you left to do but sit there and talk to each other? And they would just open up because they were distracted by the puzzle. Natalie, I think I just took a slide of yours.
That's okay. I will just add, I think kind of our purpose of coming into this with this slide specifically is sometimes we are not always naturally the best relationship builders, especially with tough students or students that we maybe have already kind of broken that opportunity for a bond. So we just wanted to give you guys some very basic tools to put in your toolbox of, man, this kid just really, he drives me nuts, but I know having a relationship with him is going to make it so much better. So let me give him that compliment. Let me chat with him about Pokemon, even though I think Pokemon is garbage. Just kind of just taking those steps to kind of, I don't know, to build that relationship.
The other thing too, to add on that, Natalie, is that like you mentioned Pokemon, if you've got a fake an interest, you're the adult, do it. Okay. The other thing too is, you can build a relationship out of having
Excuse me, wait a minute. Leroy's iPhone, you need to mute.
It's okay, I got him.
Okay. You can have a relationship with a student if you have nothing in common. You can have a relationship about the nothing in common you have. Hey, talk to me about that. Maybe you'll change my mind. An example we had today was, you're opposed to hunting and you've got a kid in front of you in all camo all fall long. Doesn't mean you have to agree with hunting, but it doesn't mean you can't say, hey, did you get a deer this morning? Oh, no, good. I'm glad you didn't. And still have that back and forth relationship. So yeah, there's many ways to have that relationship with a child. You don't have to have a lot in common. Used to love the kids that, hated my favorite teams and I hated their favorite teams. And we razzed each other all year long about it. Okay. Natalie, you want to add anything before you so graciously read this quote again?
Okay. Our final thoughts. Sorry, let me close things so I can see it.
That happened last time.
I know. I've come to a frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child will be humanized or dehumanized.
Thank you. Love that quote. I know it was shared and used a couple weeks ago when we were doing this, but fantastic quote. Last slide, I believe, is our questions. And beyond that, let's throw that up there.
Yeah. So a couple things. If you have not seen, we do not have school tomorrow. So I know that that's been chatted about. The other thing is we kind of have our contact information here. So if you have any kind of further questions that we are not able to get to, this is how you can reach us. And then I will also share this slide presentation with, I believe, your supervisor, and then they can get that emailed out to you. So if you like the quotes or want to take anything from this, then you have that information. But other than that, Eric, if you want to add any final thoughts, and then we can open it for any questions.
Yeah, like I say, it was a pleasure today. Love doing this, always have. We want you to be yourself, okay? A lot of times people come into this and they say, oh, I learned this here, I'm going to try it. And then they try to do it like somebody else, and it doesn't work. So we want it to come from you, to come from the heart, to be yourself. And if that's a bald, old, grumpy old man or a brand new teacher, use that, okay? But yeah, anything we can do to help you, please don't be shy. I know we got put into regions this year as opposed to grade levels in years past, but there are 8 of us out there now. So don't be afraid to use that request form, and we'll do whatever we can to help you.
And I also appreciate everyone's participation. It makes it
Yeah,
so
that
much
was
more
wonderful.
enjoyable for us to be able to feel like we're having a discussion and in-person interaction with you guys.
No, that's what I thought. Part of it I love in person, and part of it I love the Zoom because people can use the chat, and I think they feel a lot.
It's a
more
lot easier to
relaxed using-
participate. Yeah.
Yeah, to use the chat as opposed to, raising your hand in front of everybody. So Natalie, you tell me when I can hit stop share.
You can stop sharing.
Okay.
And then
Natalie,
yes.
if you and Eric wouldn't mind real quick, I first of all want to thank you all on behalf of the training and development team for your presence today, your presentation, and the wonderful information that you have shared with us. I do want to let everyone know that attendance will be taken several ways. So first, by you being here and present on the Zoom today, that was one way. Please make sure, if you don't mind, that if you have any questions about attendance, that you can contact our training and development team by our email, or excuse me, by our email, which is capital A DAPT at columbus.k12.oh.us. And then also there will be an evaluation that will be sent out to you all shortly after your time with us today. So please be sure to check your email. And we will be more than happy to ensure that you get credit for your attendance today. And that is all I wanted to add. And I'm going to give it back to you, Natalie and Eric. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, I think Phyllis maybe had a question earlier. If we didn't answer it, you are welcome to unmute yourself.
And you will not offend us if you need to leave.
It was not a question. But someone else was talking about whether or not they responded correctly to something that had happened. And being at an elementary school where we have students up to 6th grade, from pre-K to 6th grade, the 6th graders really, sometimes, I don't know why they come at me. I don't know if that's because I'm an easy person to talk to, but I have found myself responding when students say something that is like out of pocket to me, and I don't respond the way they want me to. So I said, did you hear them? I said, yeah, but what they say does not define me. I choose what I am and who I am. and nobody saying anything can change that. And so then I can hear other kids saying that when something like that happens to them.
That's wonderful.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I always took it as a compliment. We joke around in this district and, make, that calling us those names means I love you. And I always believe
Right.
that. I've
Right.
been called everything and they think calling me bald is going to crush me. But yeah, it's always bald and then some words I'm not going to repeat. But nonetheless, I always took it as a compliment because I always thought, they're not saying that to
Right.
the teacher next door. They're saying it because they know it's not going to crumble me and it's not going to affect me. And I love the strength that you have also to know that it's not defining us.
And it's the same thing why our kids are more likely to get into a fight in the building than they are outside, because we're a safe space. They know that
Yes.
we're here to protect them. And
Mhm.
yeah, it is the weirdest compliment anyone can give you, but take it as one.
Yeah. I mean, when they call me the B word, I'd say, just so I'm a Rottweiler, I'm good.
There you go.
I guess that doesn't I don't feel too bad hearing her say that, because I don't know. I think it's something about my demeanor. It's like they like to come for me too. And I'm like, that's one of those things I'm like, okay, this is not all right, but
Well, I think like I talked before is that I think they sense in themselves that they're starting to lose that rationality, that they're starting to escalate. And I truly believe that no child wants to be out of control.
Right.
Okay. That out of control has to scare everybody, and nobody, few and far between, get that pleasure from being out of control to the point, like I said, so I wish we were in person because I can't really tell what I'm doing, but they're looking for us to box it in, to put some boundaries around that. And they need somebody strong to do that. So when they call you that B word, they know you're going to react appropriately and with some strength to that.
Yeah, because
and they know you're going to help them.
I tend to be very stern when I mean business. I'm like, this is not okay. We're not doing this. But even though it's happening, but I think that my body language must have a very strong presence or something.
Sure.
And I always try to dumb it down a little bit, but then there's times where it's like, I can't.
Yeah.
What I see.
And I had to, in the classroom, there were times, because I'm not a big smiler. If somebody says smile, I don't really know what to do, but that would transfer into, why is big and ugly mean mugging me? And I'm just looking at you, almost like looking at you as if you need some help or something. But a lot of times I'd have to realize it would come off as, why is he staring at me? Why is he, that type of thing. So it's being aware of what your body language is saying. Right. Oh, Natalie, you're right. I'm getting the call. I'm getting the call from Columbus telling me there's no school tomorrow. So.
I have a quick question. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Whatever day we had conferences, everything's a blur at this point. We were talking to one of the parents. We've been having like ongoing problems with one of the students. So of course, during the conferences, we brought that to her attention, and she told us that he loves us so much. And I'm like, he does? And that he talks about us all the time. And she asked us, she said that he's very violent with her, especially when he comes back from his dad's house, that he's hitting her, calling her names and saying, and you know what that is. The dad is probably doing that with the stepmom or whatever. So he comes home and he's hitting her and he's being violent. So she asked us if we could, talk to him and tell him, that's not okay, that you shouldn't be mean to mom. She basically asking us to help her out. And I'm like, wow, we're like saying, help us out, because he's flipping out here. He's not violent with us, but no. Right. And he doesn't even act as bad with me. Now in his classroom, he's doing all kind of craziness. I walked into some craziness, but when he's with me, he's not anything like that. But I've seen him doing it, just not with me. So she asked us if she says he talks about us every single day. I'm like, I'm shocked by that. I am totally shocked. So she's like asking us for help. And I said, well, maybe number one, we should refer him to counseling, number one. And, you know, I don't want to, you know, give him like, you know, how should we handle? What do you think is the best way to handle it?
The question being is how involved should?
Yeah, it's like.
And one of the people asked how old he was. I did see that in the chat.
He's 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, Natalie, I'll let you chime in also. I was that teacher that I would do whatever I could to help students. So I would welcome the parent involvement so that you're on the same page. I see no problem with you setting up social stories or intervening in a way of teaching that it's not okay to hit mom, that it's not okay, just, you know, especially if she's the one coming at you and asking for your assistance.
Yeah.
I would
we've been
maybe
trying to get her help with him because
Right.
lately he's getting worse and worse. You know, you can kind of see it just getting worse over, you know, the weeks. And now she's coming to us saying, you know, you guys need to help me because he loves you guys. And we're like, what? You know, just very surprised by that. You know?
And I think if you feel any sort of discomfort with it, or that you're not maybe confident in your abilities, I do think getting referred for counseling or finding a like directions for youth, like some sort of mentoring group or something, might be a good outlet to reach somebody that can kind of meet that middle ground of someone they can have at school that can help them with stuff at home.
Yeah, I would document that mom did ask for your assistance, so we're not down the line perceived as overstepping any boundaries or whatever. But yeah, just in a general note, welcome the parents' participation, whether you're putting together a behavior plan or anything like that, because the last thing you want to do is put together a plan for that child at school. Mom or dad don't know about it, aren't part of that process, and it falls apart at home. And then you're starting over every day. So make them a part of it.
Can I jump in?
Please.
It sounds like to me that young person is crying out for help. As the aide, I talked to the teacher and asked them to begin the MTSS process. Because for me, my first instinct is to get the child help. And help for me is the counselor, social worker, whoever. But that child is actually crying out for help. And I think they need psychological help, because what it sounds to me is the child is being played against the parent. We can't control it. But what we can do is get that child the help that they need. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
do just want to say it is 3:15. Eric and I actually have to do our own checkout as well. But if anybody has any further questions for us, feel free to email us, get in contact with us. Let us know how we can help you guys out. But otherwise, again, thank you for participating and making this an enjoyable process.
No, it was wonderful. Appreciate you guys.